Boom! Hello and welcome to the Executive Protection Lifestyle Podcast, Season 4.
With your host, Byron Rodgers. This podcast is dedicated to the executive protection practitioner, the private security professional. In this podcast, we're going to talk about the mental, emotional, psychological, physiological fitness that goes into being an efficient and effective executive protection agent. Whether you're in law enforcement, whether you're a mom that's looking at how to protect her children, or a father that's focused on how to protect his family, I believe this podcast has something for all of you. We might even get into some tales from the crypts of true Hollywood stories from time to time. I'm doing this podcast because I feel the reality of this job is simple. If you really want to be good at executive protection, it's more than just a job. It really is a lifestyle. And those of you who've been in the game for any serious amount of time, you already know what I'm saying is true. So if that sounds interesting to you, enjoy the show. Out.
Boom! What's up, you guys? Byron Rodgers here for another episode of the Executive Protection Lifestyle Podcast. I've got Josh and Ryan of Empire Protection down there in Australia and out there over the pond. How you doing, gentlemen?
Well, good night.
Yeah, how are you?
Good, man. This is important to me because I've been reaching out to folks outside of the U.S. because I really want to try to understand what executive protection looks like outside of the U.S. Does it exist everywhere outside of the U.S.? How do people survive with this? What do the standards look like? What are the training requirements? Are there training requirements? Questions Americans have. Can you do executive protection without guns? All that fun stuff, So it's an honor to have you guys there. And you guys have built quite a company down there. So yeah, man, this is going to be good.
Appreciate it, man.
100%. Awesome. So a little bit about your background, Josh, and then Ryan, just so everyone, people like to, what's your background, bro?
Yeah, man. So originally my sort of government background was Australian Federal Police and then corrections. I was in sort of tactical roles in both those environments. And then about 8 years ago, jumped on the freelance circuit over here, just doing sort of CP work, trying to navigate, building that, as you say, building your personal brand and building the connections and the reputation and sort of seeing where that ended. And then, about 7 years ago, started the company kind of because I realized nobody else was doing it good enough.
Good.
So I sort of backed in that opinion and here we are.
Outstanding. And you said you started in Australia and then you popped over here. Where are you guys at right now?
No, we're in Sydney now.
Okay.
We've got offices in Sydney and Melbourne, covering sort of the whole Asia Pacific region specifically. But, we've got guys going all over the world when it's required. So
awesome. That's exciting. Good to go. Welcome. Congratulations, Okay, awesome. Ryan, whenever you're.
So I joined the military, got selected straight into 2nd Commando Regiment, which is one of 3 Special Forces regiments in Australia. Only took me 6 months to get in there through a direct entry scheme that they started back in the early 2000s. I was kind of lucky. We started rolling into Afghanistan shortly after.
Yeah.
So I did back-to-back special operations task groups. I think I did 5 in total. And then I kind of switched roles into the personal protection unit that we have, looking after all the politicians and any senior ranking Australian officials, including generals, into Afghanistan. So they're short-term and long-term deployments. I think I ended up doing 9 deployments into Afghanistan over a 10-year period. Some years 2, some years I had off. And then rolled into counterterrorism for the last tactical assault group, which is the force of last resort for the Australian federal government here in Australia. Ended up doing 13 years in total, then rolled out, tried a few different jobs, and ended up on the private security circuit, met up with Josh, and here we are today.
Lightweight. Wow. Okay. You knew all this, you knew all this stuff. I see. That's awesome, man. Well, how do you feel about, like, what's your executive protection experience like in comparison to all the high speed sounding stuff that you've been involved with, man? How does it, like, are you bored? Is it a different stage of life? Are there different things that you appreciate about it? Do you like it? How do you feel about that transition?
No, I think the transition, well, executive protection is quite new in Australia. You have your classic bodyguard, which is a reactive force to most problems, where there's only one or two firms here in Australia that actually put a risk management lens on executive protection. Okay. And really build programs to mitigate risk at all levels. That includes the residential protection, the corporate protection, their cyber security, which is a big thing now, especially in Australia in the last few weeks. That holistic approach to an individual that needs looking after. So we're not singly focused here. So it's been a big transition, and I've had to learn a whole lot of new skills across the board, and we bring in specialists when we require them, but you need a basic understanding of everything, which is totally different to the hard skills you learn when you're in the military and you're just another shooter in the team or the team lead. Right. It's a lot different. Obviously, here in Australia, we're not allowed to carry firearms. Quite strict. The firearms across the board, it's not really a big thing. It's really only the shooting community or the pistol competition community. So per capita, it's quite low. So you have to come up with different ways of mitigating risk, because the threats are still out there. And it's, your driving packages and how you plan and execute missions. If you're getting into the gunfight, you failed your job as far as I'm concerned.
Well, if you're not done, for sure.
Yeah. So
I think that's what I found interesting swapping out of the government space, because in the government, you do your thing. Like, you're assigned a role, you do your role. You can be amazing at it, but it's like one role. And the next job, you might get a different role, but your exposure to each thing or your input into each task is kind of limited to that role that you're given. Whereas here, and particularly that we, run the show in our shop, the challenge is fun to, like, how many problems can I solve for my client this week? And as Ryan alluded to, we've gone quite holistic to provide that suite of services. So we looked at what is it that the clients of EP require, and what are the similar services that we can get into. So whether it's TSCM sweeps, whether it's luxury ground transport, corporate air transport, open source intelligence, whatever it is. So we've gone and said, okay, these are all things that either are part of or support a holistic EP package. Right. So let's go get those people in. And then we just found either experts or partner companies that we heavily vetted, and made sure that we work on the same page with the same understanding, the same standards. But now we can just deliver that whole package rather than saying, I'm just your driver, or I'm just your PSO this week, or whatever it is. We're actually able to do that whole sort of remit. And I think that's what's exciting for us now, is, like, you might not be the shooter anymore, but it's like, the risk assessment comes up with 10 problems. How many of those can we work to solve?
And I suppose because our environment is safer compared to America across the board,
we don't say it right now. You're just gonna come out and say it, huh?
This is awful.
No big deal. Whatever. I'm up here in LA trying not to get shot as we speak.
It's not that the risk isn't there. It's just not as in everyone's face as it is. So people, because they're not in Australia, aren't educated about the risk. They're almost naive to them. So it is. And I see you talk about it all the time about an individual taking responsibility. But in our environment, we get caught in for crisis. So whether it's a cyber attack on a company, which then inflames media tensions, which then, it could be pressure from the government that gives pressure to the mainstream media, which gives pressure to the trolls on social media, and then they start attacking individuals, the threat quickly jumps above the detection threshold, and people go, hang on a second, we're not prepared for this because we haven't thought about it.
What about?
So we get caught in them environments, in those environments where we have to build programs quickly across the board to make sure the person's safe, or multiple people are safe if you're talking about a corporation, because you might have to quickly stand up an executive protection program across the board for that whole corporation.
Yeah. When you said people are kind of oblivious or feel safe, with some of the other international guys I've spoken with and some of the things I've seen on details, does that present a problem with regards to the client appreciating your services or even thinking they need your services? So I think like a client, I think that's a kind of thing you have to deal with.
I think that's a global problem, because I think, yes, it may be exacerbated in our climate, but I think clients who aren't sort of familiar with EP 24/7, that don't have teams with them all the time.
Yeah.
They act on emotion, right? So they get a threat, they're scared. Suddenly, I don't care about money. I've got all the money in the world. What they want is for you to make them feel safe. Yep. They don't really care about a risk matrix. They don't care about all the stuff behind the scenes. They just want to know there's somebody behind me that is keeping me safe, because that manages their emotional state, right?
Yep.
So where we have conflict, and I think this would be a global matter, is I can present a risk matrix that says, okay, you've had a threat, but we've looked into it.
Right.
There's no ability, means, or opportunity for that guy to carry out that threat, because they're, the other side of the country, they're not moving. It's a generic threat. Yeah. They're not really concerned about it, but they're scared. So we need a team right now. Yeah. Whereas you might go to that same client a month later and say, hey, look, we identified this threat through some OSINT. We think it's pretty concerning because we've looked a bit deeper. That particular target is a problem. We think, for whatever reason, there's an issue. If they're not scared, they don't care. Yeah. They don't want to pay that bill. And they go, no, I don't think it's an issue. I'm like, but we've got A, B, C, D telling us this is a problem.
Right.
We think you need to step this up. But if their emotion's not there, they don't want to pay the bill. So it's that balancing act of not letting the principle of the client's emotions dictate the product.
Yeah. And I think that's a battle that a wise man once told me, kind of when I was starting out in this game on the private side, which, was kind of like, who's responsible for your client's protection? And as a young Marine, you get put in a position and you're a protector. You're like, I'm going to die before something happens here, I'm what? I'm the protector, but he's like, your customer, your principal, your client. And I'm like, how do you figure? They know nothing, about what it is we do. And he's like, but who even creates the space for you to be here? Who is going to have the final say on how safe you can keep them and how safe you can't? If they don't want you to follow, you're not going to follow. If they don't want you to And so, I think one of the biggest struggles being on the private side is, what Max Joseph's called is like seatbelt security. It's the being able to have your strategy and then actually being able to implement it, or stomaching the fact that your client watched The Bodyguard and and they have their expertise, that ideal of security and the reality of what it looks like, and trying to marry those, man.
And it might not just be the client. They may have a team around them that run their life. And we spoke about it before. If you don't have the emotional intelligence to interact with those people from different walks of life, different cultures, different lived experiences. Right. One person may be an accountant, but they're the trusted individual that your client. You need to be able to talk and communicate to that person so he understands what you're trying to do. And it's how you sell that message is the difference between whether you're effective at your job. So if I can't explain to a novice, hey, why we're doing something and the benefits for them, then they're not going to understand. So I always, and everyone goes, everyone always asks me, friends and family, like, what's your job? Is it to protect people? And I say that's half of my job. My job is to protect them so they can do their job.
Yeah.
So if they're not performing in a crisis because they can't sleep because they're worried about their family at home, they're worried about traveling to and from work, you implement secure transport.
Yeah.
You put a detail on their house and then you travel with them. That gives them comfort, which brings their emotional state back to normal, so then they can start thinking and performing and doing their job. Because if they don't survive the crisis, they're not going to be a client for much longer. They ain't going to have money. Yep. So, and it's about performance of the individual.
Yep.
A singer is the same. If they can't get up and sing on stage, you ain't getting paid. So, we always want to lock people in a room. That's the safest place in the world, but they need to achieve their mission. So we're there to enable them. And I think that's the biggest thing that new people to the industry or don't come from a very well-rounded military or police background fail to understand.
Right.
I think the guys, when they're transitioning, though, because, again, we look at it purely from a risk mitigation standpoint. So if you've got a high-profile celebrity that says, I want to go into the crowd and take selfies, by nature, we say no. Because we can't control the crowd, we don't understand the crowd.
Yeah, you're going to go into an ocean of variables. This is the horrible idea, but it's
I don't want to do that. But if we don't let that celebrity do that, they cease to be a celebrity.
Right.
And then they're like, well, that wasn't the point. The point was to get out and be amongst the fans and have that interaction. And we have to find a way to facilitate that as safely as possible.
Now, whether that's getting a bunch of cleared random crowd members and bring them into a controlled environment, so that they can take selfies and interact with, their clients, like the people that are paying their bills. There's different ways you can do it. So it's a thinking man's game. To be in this industry, you need to think and change at the drop of a hat when your client goes, hey, we're not doing ABC anymore, we're doing XYZ. And you're like, okay, think about that, come up with a plan, decide and act.
100%. And be like a duck if you have to. Calm on the outside, those little feet. You're getting it done, man. You're getting it done.
Boom. If you've been enjoying the podcast, I want to encourage you to come and train with me. Train with us, the League of Executive Protection Specialists. We offer online courses so you can train and learn how to take your executive protection career to the next level from the comfort of your own home. We offer on-ground training on everything from the hard skills of driving, shooting, medical, and into the soft skills through the Executive Protection Immersion course, which is one of the most experiential, learning-centric courses in the executive protection industry. Either way, I want you to become part of the golden standard in the private security industry and join the brotherhood, the League of Executive Protection Specialists. Go to epspecialist.com and let's do our careers together. I'll see you there. Out.
And the clients.
And I think one more thing on the end of that is to recognize when it just doesn't work, right? So we recently quoted a job and I spoke to through the client, and I spoke to the principal at the end of the process, and they had a reasonably active lifestyle, particularly nightlife style. And I sort of said, look, while we've got these active threats, that's going to have to be on hold for a couple of weeks. We're not going to go night clubbing while there's active threats, particularly not to places that you regularly go to, that you check in on social media at. It's just, and they said, oh, no, well, I'll still be doing that. I said, but like my job is to make you not get hurt, but part of that is telling you what we should and shouldn't do, not just stand around over your shoulder like a shadow and
waiting for
punch on with every like that's not how this works. I'm here to tell. The way I keep you safe is to tell you not to do that. This guy wasn't having a bar of it. He's like, absolutely, I will live my life. That's what I'm paying you for. So we just walked away because it's not worth whatever the money was going to be. It's not worth the reputational damage, the risk to the operators on the ground that are now blatantly having to face this stuff. It's not worth the headache with a client that doesn't want to listen, and it's not worth being on the nightly news at the end if you get that wrong, and they do get hurt.
Yeah.
Or suddenly now, the headline is bodyguard fails or whatever it is.
Oh, yeah. You're the leper of the industry. And that stuff doesn't rub off easy. And that kind of one of the principles, one of the guys that, mentored me was like, look, man, not all money is good money. Not all these relationships are good relationships. And, fortunately I cut my teeth walking through all the doors and then fought my way to a place. And there's advice for all you guys listening, like in the beginning, when you're coming up in the game, I say work as much as you can, but like your point's rock solid. Nowadays, I'm looking for clients that I know that I can have a relationship with that'll actually allow me to do my job. So in the end, it's my responsibility. If we sign that contract, it's going to be my responsibility. So I'm going to take responsibility for it. So I agree with you 100%. Whenever possible, I want to have those relationships with my principals and clients. And that's part of the job, 100%.
And I think
I've seen it go. I've seen it go both ways, man. And I've gone with it both ways. I've had, I've been in other countries where my clients like, I want to go eat here, and I'm like, I consult with my locals, and they're like, dude, it's a horrible idea. There's might be a civil war there tonight. And I'm like, madam, sir, we really shouldn't go out here. We absolutely shouldn't. It's not safe. And they're like, I want the full offal from that plate. And I'm like, and we have to go with them, but I respect it, man. I love that stuff. That's the way it should be, 100%.
And I suppose for the newer guys in the industry that are, they start off bouncing around different teams and that and working for different people is like, and you always want to be the dude that calls. So you always answer the phone call. But you need to start looking at your employer and going, hey, is he enabling me correctly? Do I want to work with this guy all the time? Or is he just throwing me in the deep end with no support, no mentoring and that sort of stuff because he just needs an extra body? I would be saying to those newer guys, I was like, hey, as an industry mentor, maybe look at your boss. Is he treating you right as an individual? Is that the guy that you want to be? Or is there other people in the industry you're like, hey, I want to work with that guy because he actually cares about people and he sets me up for success instead of, throwing me a handball and watching me get knocked out.
Yeah, 100%.
And you see that the most with like the climate trends, right? Like something kicks off in Central Africa, so suddenly
everybody's getting on this detail. Everyone's just jumping up. Yeah.
The Iraq, it's Afghanistan, it's Central Africa. Obviously, the last little while it's been the Ukraine.
Yeah.
And so it's like everybody's just going to the Ukraine, and it's almost this attitude of like, if you didn't go,
like you're not
part of, like, who are you? You didn't go to Ukraine. But we're all there. But then you look at some of the people that are there, both as operators and providers of operators.
Right.
And I think, like, what qualifies you to be there?
Yeah.
Like, you have no experience in hostile stuff. You have no, like, groundwork done to be there. So, the operator, the client's going to have a false sense of security now because they've got this guy that the client doesn't know any better. Yeah, he looks the part, sweet as he's all dressed, he's all
got a background.
All the gear and no idea. Like, the client doesn't know. So there's a risk there. And then there's providers that are just sending dudes over there because, hey, I committed to a contract, I'm getting paid a fortune for each guy. So I'll send 30 guys without even checking what their capabilities are. Right. And you're just setting them up to fail. Like this ambulance chasing attitude of, let's just jump on the back of the next crisis.
Yeah.
Like if you're not, we've got to be like, put our egos away a little bit and be honest. And, like travel is a massive part of what we do. And obviously a lot of the time you're traveling to places you wouldn't choose to go to because people don't necessarily need EP in the south of France and, in all the awesome places that we want to go. They need them in the developing countries and the countries that have more risk. But that means like we have to be more targeted about who we're sending and what we're doing when we get there. Because I wouldn't just put my hand up and say, hey, yeah, I'll go to Peru. I've never been to Peru. I don't understand the climate, the security scope in Peru. Like what value am I going to add? Mm-hmm. At least on my own. Like I can't help you there. So to say that I will is endangering me, it's endangering my client.
No,
that's why we build relationships overseas with people like yourself and that sort of stuff. Because for us, the value of a security company overseas is their network into their region. So, obviously there's a lot of companies in America that have reached down into Mexico through their network. You can't be the guy that knows everyone around the world. It's the old thing on social media. You probably only have, 50 people max that you actually communicate with all year.
Warm contacts. Yeah.
Yeah. And you may have 2,000-3,000, but you're not chatting to those people every day, or every month. So, it's those localized connections and having good established companies in a regional area that know other companies that they trust, because we all work on trust here. And 9 times out of 10, it's a personal connection, whether it's 2 or 3 down the chain. It's like, I trust that guy and that guy trusts him. And we've all worked together in some capacity. We actually understand that's where the value comes from these sort of companies. Not just, hey, I'm going to take a job in Antarctica because it's close to Australia.
Yeah, because it's cool.
People do. People are like, hey, I got this contract. I'll subcontract it out 3 or 4 times to someone I don't even know or trust or even heard of before. And you're like, I wouldn't put that to my clients. I wouldn't do that to them. That's not the sort of person I am.
Yeah, no, fortunately, man. But there's a lot of that going on in the industry, especially when it comes to just putting guys on accounts with backgrounds. Like I run an in-doc for my company, guys coming in, you got to pass. If you're going to carry a firearm on duty working for my company, you got to understand your capabilities. I know you're a Navy SEAL. I know, but I've got to at least know what you can do today, right? And unfortunately, what I always see, and this is why with my school, with the league, I started out in the hard skills intensives, because I would get these dudes and they'd be awesome on paper, and they would even have already been with high-end A-list celebrities out on the road doing things. But then we get to the hard skills assessment to get on the team, and we're not passing local law enforcement shooting quals, and we don't know how to put a tourniquet on, and like, that for me is basics. Like, dude, I can teach you how to do it in 5 minutes, but I got to know you don't know how to do it. You know what I mean? Like, I at least got to know you don't know how to do it. So there's a lot. And I know here in the US for sure, there's a lot of dudes that sign a dotted line and wake up on post and are next to a client and are expected or looked at as extremely competent because maybe they went to Iraq or they have whatever this background is. And, I want to commend, and I also want to encourage professionals. I hope that the industry of tomorrow is one where agents are training themselves to perform above the level, at least, of local law enforcement, because we are private. So when they look at us, they think we want to be cops, and we're, not as legit as they are. And so, I keep my teams qualling once every quarter and doing refreshers on medical once every quarter. So when you lift up our skirt, you see, hey, these guys are at least legitimately acting like professionals at a higher level than what our local municipalities are doing. And I just want the industry to really look at that, because as a company owner, these guys are out there with the spectacle of possibly utilizing force on a really bad day in your name, like with no SOPs on how to do it or what to do, and understanding of these things. I think a lot of the industry has been fly by night, and we really need to change that so we don't get embarrassed.
And we put too much focus on that background thing, because like, how long do you write off that? Like, I did 4 years military 22 years ago.
Right.
Like,
it was like
in my career, like, I'll mention my resume at some point. And people, that's interesting. Tell me about that. I'm like, that's not the bit I care about. That bit was a long time ago. I've done so much since then in personal and professional development. But that was a cool foundation. It was a good, it was a good education piece. It gave me that foundation to push from. Yes, it was some solid training early in life that I, sort of expedited my broad understanding, but I'm not relying on skills that I learned 17 years ago to hold weight now. But yet dudes will say that, special forces 25 years ago. Like, okay.
Cool, man. I mean, I respect it.
Yeah, man. But what have you done since? And where are we at with that? And the other side of that is, we all know in government service, you've got like how much support. There's always, you can call in an airstrike. Like, I want an airstrike. You will get 400 dudes come, you will get
millions of
equipment,
dollars
you'll
of
get,
support.
like whatever you need, somebody's coming to help you. But us, it's like this is it. I am here on my own. Maybe I've got another guy if I'm lucky.
Maybe.
Like the fact that you operated as part of a massive team, that's awesome. They're all transferable skills, but I'm not going to rely on you telling me you're in the police or the military or whatever. And as you say, like, you know, there are a lot of people in the industry that are here to go into police or military. Yeah. And there's a lot of people that were police or military that are now here. But as you say, like, I've got no desire to go back to that life. That's not, and you're right, like the attitude is, oh, you're just a security guard. Don't, you know, I'm a cop, but like, man, you don't know anything. You just turn up, pull your notebook out, write down my license detail. Like,
when's the last time, you know, how sharp are those skills? What's the scene like for EP down there in Australia? Is there a lot of activity, a lot of work? Are you guys like my buddy over in like in Germany? He was talking about how the kind of the local populace doesn't really see a need for EP, so he does more security driving, as which is really the way that he packages executive protection. What's it look like down there? Are you doing more in the South Pacific? Is that scene kind of more where the action is? You know, for all of our listeners, what's it like down there, man?
I would suppose that it's probably across the country, there's only 5 companies that do it in any way, shape, or form well and do it as their sort of bread and butter. Good. There's a lot of individuals that work security in whatever capacity to pay their mortgage, right? And then, but they'll get called once or twice a year for one particular client because that client knows them somehow along the way, and that guy's that's his person. He goes, I'm going to call Johnny. Johnny's going to do my EP for that week. And, you know, there's a few people that bounce around as private contractors and work for all four or 5 of those companies. And, you know, other companies just to pay the mortgage because they like the excitement and their lifestyle, you know, they may be single or their lifestyle allows them to do that sort of stuff. So, but, you know, there is a growing need for executive protection in Australia. I don't think people understand it completely. And a lot of our piece and what we do as a company and what we're known for is writing executive protection strategies and developing programs for people from scratch. So they'll have an in-house security manager for a corporation and they'll go, hey, I've been directed to do this, but I have no idea where to start. So we come in, we write the policy for them, and it's usually on an on-call basis. And that's everything from the cybersecurity protection for the executives. So it's separated from the corporation so that they can talk securely between themselves. And we have a few products that we use for that. It's the vetted driving companies that we use. Are they a chauffeur company or do they do security driving? Our driver company that we use, they've got defibrillators and first aid kits in the majority of their cars. So we worked with this company. He saw an opportunity. We saw an opportunity for him, and his business has gone threefold because of it in the last couple of years, because people want difference. It's not always about price. It's like, what do they do better? So we come in and we sit usually between an in-house security team and their major security provider and do a holistic package from residential security, develop everything, help out with the corporation, help out with the transport, help out with the HR department, because one of the rising things at the moment is disgruntled workers. So they're suing their companies, and we have a law in Australia. You have to do everything reasonably possible to protect and give a safe working environment to your staff. So we're being pulled in for those sort of jobs. And it could be the little old admin girl gets an EP team for an extended period of time. A lot of family breakups where they've gone into legal disputes for law firms, and they bring us in just to do the handover between mum and dad because they can't be trusted. They want a professional so that, mum can't say something bad about dad and dad can't say something bad about mum, because we come from a law enforcement or military background. We know how to write reports for police.
Right.
So we de-escalate that whole situation before it starts. Now, It sounds weird, but that's an opening and growth in the market, and why not jump in there and be different?
I think some of those times, though, those like witness protection jobs are actually the most satisfying, because when a corporation that you've never heard of says, "Come look after this executive that you've never heard of,"
right?
Because we've got an ego, like, "Oh, good, we'll do the job." But when there's genuinely a victim that, particularly if it's like, a single mother with kids or something like that, that's genuinely an active threat.
Yeah.
It's a lot more satisfying to work in that space, I think, because you genuinely kind of care about the outcome, as opposed to just, we're just going through the motions of this detail. It's super low risk.
Yeah. Let's make this guy look good.
and that client genuinely cares about you and is thankful for what you do for them. Yeah. Because,
very true.
So that's selfish of me, that I like to get gratitude, but we're all humans. Yeah. That's what we all seek. Right. So it's like, sometimes I choose what's going to be better for the individual, opposed to, hey, you know what, I've worked for that client before and he made my life difficult, so I'm going to say no now, because he doesn't listen to me, for starters. He can go to company B. That doesn't bother me. But I'm in a position where I can do that now, which is fortunate.
Well, we had an interesting experience because of COVID, because we got locked down for so long.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that, man. What was that like?
Oh, it was insane, mate. Like, where I live, man, it was over a year combined of like not being able to leave your house more than 3 miles at all for any reason other than like a hospital trip.
That's hard to believe it really happened.
Oh, it's
leave your house for 3 miles in like 3 worlds.
You have to wear a mask outside to walk your dog, which you can only do for 1 hour a day. Like, just shit, right? Just shit.
Well, my state was the different. It was like they didn't really care.
But then we couldn't get between the states. We couldn't get overseas. Like, they closed domestic borders, they closed international borders. It was
so insane, you were just, right? If you lived in a place that was, whack, you were just stuck there.
I couldn't get, like, Ryan's in Sydney and I live in Melbourne. We couldn't see each other for over a year because the border was hard shut. And they made exemptions, like if you're a beekeeper, you can cross the border with your bees. But, like, there's no joke a story where some dude had to, like, he had a farm where the border went through his farm, and he wasn't allowed to bring sheep across the border, like, from one paddock to another. Like, it was a mental. But what it kind of did for us was actually positive, because business had a massive downturn. We lost the first month when the borders shut, it was just cancel. We're getting these emails like every job was cancelled. We're looking at like $1 million just gone down the drain.
Oh, man.
We're like, how do we manage this? So we kind of panicked and got drunk for a couple of days. And then we went, okay. And we thought, we're crisis managers. Right. Other people, now we're in crisis.
Now we're going to get to work.
Let's just do that, right? So we sobered up, and then we're like, okay, how do we do this? Mm-hmm. So we sort of transitioned, and for us, I think, Ryan mentioned that might be 5 companies down this way prior that were sort of in the EP space. We're genuinely the only ones that stuck to our guns and didn't go into any other form of security. We don't do manpower security. We don't do nightclubs. We don't do like static guarding, whatever. We never have. We never will. It's not, the only time we come close to it is if it's in support of a bigger task.
Bigger mission.
Like security at a hotel or at a corporate event or whatever, AGMs, that sort of thing, all good. Yeah. But we're not that labour hire provider. We've never wanted to be in that space, mainly because we just want to control the quality at that super high level.
And it bores me.
It's just not something we're interested in anymore. But it sort of was an interesting reset for us, because everybody else in the industry that plays in this space kind of just went, that doesn't exist. Let's just move over to the sides of the industry that are still making the money. Yeah. And sort of bastardize their product while doing it. So we actually kind of came out, we just skeletoned right down. We just dropped down to absolutely bare capacity
essentials
through that period, and we got through it, and it was tough. But now we're like, man, we're up like 1,000% on pre-COVID this year. So, you know, like, and some big headline stuff. Like, you know, we looked after, we had the the fortune of dealing with the Novak Djokovic at the Australian Open thing. You know, like we've been through some pretty big crisis tasks this year. You know, and come out flying. And I think we, obviously, the more you do it, the better you are at it. And the more we have of it, the more people we get in with us. You know, so now we've got a bigger team, we've got bigger capability, we've got better experience. We're like immersed in that space now. So, you know, we went,
I suppose the thing that differs from us a lot to other companies is you may have really good consultants that write all the reports, but they don't have an operational arm. And then you have good operational companies, but they don't have a consulting arm. We sit in between, again, because we saw an opportunity in the market. We are excellent operators and we're good consultants. So we can go across the spectrum. So we get pulled in quite a lot by other consultants. It's like, hey, we got this problem. We've got this mad solution. And Josh will be like, you can't do that because you don't understand the labor market. So, you know, you go into an AGM and you're expecting the guards to do A, B, and C. And he goes, that's not going to happen. Like, because that dude is doing 18 hours a day and he's bouncing about 3 different jobs just to make ends meet. Because he's got a large family that he needs to feed. So that personal guard isn't going to be operating at the capacity. So you need to mitigate those risks inside your program and do things in a different way. And unless you understand the operational side and consulting, you can't do that. And that's where we've seen a lot of success for us.
And most consultants feel like they're above that process. Like, I'm not going to go talk to the security guards down at the door. That's like,
really?
Why would I go interact with them? You know, there's this. I sit up in the office. I don't go down and talk to that security guard. You know? And like, but if you don't do that, like, one, you're just a dick. But two, how do you understand the product, and like, how do you know what their capabilities are, and you know, little things like, you know, are they, like, if they're underperforming, is it because they're understaffed, you know, don't get lunch breaks, don't feel stimulated, aren't getting training, aren't understanding why they're there, don't recognize the risk they're there to mitigate? Like, there's a million reasons why somebody underperforms.
Right.
And we've found, like, by making everybody, no matter how, like, we all get crap details, right? We've all done it at some point in time. We've all been the dude on the furthest door that's just there for the last, you know, the redundancy, and you get there and you're like, today sucks. I want to do something.
I got to do this for the next,
Right, but we've all been there, we've all done it. But, you know, I think if you just, everybody needs to understand, and leaders need to understand that they need to make the worker understand why that job is important, because they're always important. There's always a reason you're there.
100%.
And I think new guys to our company or subcontractors we bring in to do a specific task are quite shocked when me, the owner of the company, will sit in the car with them at night and just go, hey, I'm just going to do 3 hours with you at midnight. Because, you know, one, I'm mentoring him, I'm checking on him, I may teach him something in those 3 hours that no one in his last 3 years has bothered to pass on. That guy's going to be better for it. So I see value in that for my product. So I'm willing to invest time in people, because at the end of the day, our people are our product. So if you don't have good people and willing to invest time in them, you're not going to have a product for long. You may have a good company for a few years, but it's not going to be sustainable because you're robbing Peter to pay Paul sort of thing. So, and you know, it's those people that you turn up and invest in a little time. It doesn't even have to be that much. The stuff I'm teaching him is not, you know, some black art that I developed. It's my own IP. It's information that just got passed down to me. So I'm passing on to the next generation. 100%. That person will always answer my phone call. When I'm like, oh, man, I'm struggling, I need someone because they've scaled up the detail twofold. I put a few calls. The dudes are like, I'll burn my old boss. I'll come work for you the day I call sick. They'll do that for me. and sometimes I have to tell them, hey, don't do that. Like, think about the long-term game.
Yeah.
But next time I'll give you a call. Like, I appreciate you wanting to do that. But if you're a dickhead, people aren't going to answer your phone calls and you're not going to have a team for much longer. So you need to be a good person that people want to work for, want to be led by, so you can have that good sustainable product for, years to come.
100%. Standards down there. Do you guys have, what's the licensing and the standard of the average agent working down there? What's that look like? And then what level of training? Like, what's the standard that they need? And then are you seeing guys doing any additional training to be better?
We have the worst balance of both because the government will. So first of all, we have 8 states and territories in Australia, right? So each one of them's got different licensing. And so to operate nationally, you have to have a license in every single state or territory individually that all costs money. All have different compliance.
It's terrible. So
it costs us like $80,000 a year just to be able to work across the country because you have to have cards in every single place, right?
$18,000 a year?
80. Like it's
you need a company license, you need individual licenses.
And then they have categories like crowd control, static guarding, bodyguarding,
dogs,
like consulting, canine, cameras, like they've all got different things and they all cost more. So every little box you tick.
Wow. That's worse than I thought, man.
Ridiculous, man. But then to make it worse, right? So if you want to enter the industry from nothing, you have to just be a baseline security guard. Like I think the guard card you have in California, right?
Yeah, like
that level.
Yeah.
That is a 17-day course that costs like $3,000 for argument's sake, $2,000 to $3,000.
Wow, you're getting educated. Is the course worth it, dang? Like,
it's total shit. So this is the point, right? You've got to give up 17 days and $3,000 to do nothing. And at the end of it, the one exam they have at the end for the whole time, they're like, if you fail this exam, they just give you the answers at the end.
Yeah, of course.
So like it's a complete waste of time. People come out of there with nothing.
No value.
So it just drains your life, drains your time, drains your money, and gives you nothing. Then, if you want to be like a specialist, so close protection, canine, investigations, whatever, you've got to go do another 2-week course for another $2,000, which is equally as shit. And then there's like 4 levels. So the problem is you can be the most qualified guy in the country with like 17 certificates and all these tick boxes and look at all this stuff. You've never worked a day in your life anywhere near the industry, no experience whatsoever. But like if you're unemployable and you go see a job placement agency, like a recruitment firm, and they might go, man, I cannot find you a job. You are unemployable. You can't even put your pants on in the morning, but we'll pay for you to go do the security course. And then that guy will go do the course and they'll give him the answers and he'll tick the boxes and then he'll come out and be in the industry. And you can't filter because everybody's got all these calls. So like you will have the bodyguard, you will have the investigator, you will have like dudes with canine certifications that have never even
seen
touched a dog. So vetting that is like, but we all have to go through it. There's no choice. You have to go through it and then embarrass yourself for like the whole period
and just
there like a child
and just just take the lashes.
Just like suicidal in the classroom for 3 weeks over this shit.
That's brutal.
And then you can't vet kind of everybody in the industry. So it's like, our recruitment process is long. It's like, and it's not targeted. It's we hear about a good guy. Let's go have a coffee with the guy. Let's reach out on LinkedIn. Let's start some conversations. Let's slowly over time.
Let's watch his social media for 6 months and see what he says.
That's but in terms of advanced training, the problem here is there's no courses here in anything advanced, really. So the issue with that is we've either got to spend a fortune going to the States or going to South Africa or going to the places, go to Europe, which for us is like, it's 17-hour flight to get over to just LA, and you've got to find a place, you've got to stay, you've got to pay for the training, you've got to do whatever. It's a big deal.
We provide housing at my school. Yeah, shameless plug, my podcast. Yeah.
Get into it, man. We'll plug it.
Oh man, that's what's up. Anyway, go ahead.
So like that's all there. It's a big factor, you know. So we know some guys at the moment that are doing the right thing. They transitioned out of the military. They're heading over to America to do Trojan courses or South Africa to do Ronin courses. All the ones we've heard of, you know. People get out and do it, but then you come back and then there's not that much work. So you've just invested $10,000 in going to do all that. But at the end of the day, right now, if Ryan or I don't want to employ the guy, he just did all that for nothing. Like, because
and he's got like, what'd you say, like maybe 5 companies tops that he's
Max, there's probably like 2 now. So it's like pretty much if we don't want you and the one other guy doesn't want you, you just wasted your money.
Because the market is broken up into those individual people that have the contract from way back when, and they'll just do that one contract once a year when that person flies in or whatever. So it's like, it's obviously decentralized, and he'll just build a team around him of the people he knows. So unless you get on the circuit and you start bouncing around for a whole bunch of people, it's very hard to pay the mortgage,
right?
And find that company that will
provide those
provide those opportunities. What we find a lot of time is when I'll go around and I'll be at a venue, it's someone else's house, and I'll see a guard that's performing. Yep. I'll tap that guy on the shoulder. I was like, man, have you thought about this? Have you thought about doing some consulting? He may be a venue manager somewhere.
Yeah.
And then when a detail comes up, I might give him a call. I'm like, hey, I'm going to give you a shot. Come try out. And that's what I said. I spent some time with him. Or we'll chat to him over 6 months before an opportunity where both our schedules line up that he can work. But it's the dudes that put in the time and the effort in educating themselves that usually get the follow-on phone calls. It's like, hey, guys, I've done this, and I'm looking to do X, Y, Z as well in the future. I'd love to, spend some time with you and pick your brain. And me and Josh are very open in the industry, especially me with being a vet. Anyone that wants to transition, my people just call me, and I'm happy to take, or find me on LinkedIn. Happy to educate people. I had a friend. He reached out. Well, he's a friend now, but he wasn't. He was in the Victorian Police. He reached out. He's moving to the UK. We started chatting to him. I was like, hey, man, these are the things you need to do. These are the sort of people you need to talk to over there. You need to involve yourself in the industry and be a contributor. That's how you get known. You can't just not talk. You need to interact with people. And social media allows you to do that now. It allows you to reach out to the Ryan Tindalls, the Joshes of the world on the other side of the planet and have those those lines of communication.
I think people feel too shy sometimes as well, like particularly if you're just starting out. And like you see the names around, the Byron Rodgers, the Christian West, the Aaron Malden, and they're like, oh, I can't talk to that guy.
Yeah.
Look, do it. Just do it. Because if I look at your LinkedIn and see that you've contributed to conversations in public threads and comments, if I'm watching a podcast and I see the comments come up from that guy over and over, and I go, man, they're intelligent comments or they're useful questions. That dude seems to get it. Yep. Then I'm going to reach out to that guy or girl and go, hey, would you like to have a conversation at some point?
Yep, 100%, man. And that's one of the things I teach all the time, the digital networking part of it. You now have the ability to get in front of decision makers on a almost daily basis by making valuable, intelligent, well thought out contributions on a platform like LinkedIn. You get your stuff together and you keep contributing, and don't try to sound smart. There's a whole class about how to do it and not make yourself, you can just as quickly slit your own throat, you can just as quickly slit your own throat. But
and now's the perfect time, I think, to bring up the LinkedIn post from
carry. I actually didn't see the post, but I've been hearing about it. So this
was my favorite thing, like of 2022.
Give us the whole, like, what was the post? Was it a guy? One guy said carry bags. One guy said, what do we got?
I think it was on Aaron Malden's LinkedIn, and he just posted something like, do what you got to do. Like, it was a pretty simple concept. It was just like, do what needs to be done,
Mm-hmm.
And some cowboy jumped on there and was like, I don't carry bags. I need my master hand free at all times to mitigate threats. From my 5 o'clock, whatever bullshit he came up with,
Yeah.
And then so it started this thing that like I saw it on day one when it had like 6 comments.
Yeah.
And I kind of put that in I feel like I want to comment, but I don't want to get engaged with these idiots because it seems like it's already going.
Like I'm going to save my energy for something else, you know.
And then I saw it like a week later, it's come back to my thread and it was like 800 comments and it was just blown up. And it kind of sat like a 50-50 thing of half the crew going, oh, like if there's no reason not to, then do what you're told or do what's helpful or just be busy, like be active. If you can carry a bag. If you can hold the door, whatever it is. And other dudes were like adamant. Absolutely not. Yeah. I'm not paid. I'm not a servant, you know, whatever. And it was like, it was hectic to see this thing. And like, I've got my opinion, right? I don't really care whether people think I'm right or wrong. Like, I'll operate how I operate. You do you. That's all good. But
if you see an article of me getting shot because I was carrying a bag, fine, you win.
Dude, I'll wear that, right?
You win.
I fall on the side of if there's no reason not to do something, if you can add value to your client, do it. You know,
100%.
Obviously, if you're walking through a massive crowd of hostile people, now's not the time to carry the bag. But if you're just going up the elevator in the hotel, do what you do, and like it's not that hard.
Throw it in your left hand. Throw it in your left hand if you're worried about
whatever. Right? Yeah, then you can fight yourself in the mirror. You know.
And I think a lot of people, and I see it all the time. A lot of people in the military and police, they're taught an action, right, and they don't fully understand why they do that. Now, sometimes in the military is bad for it. You know, monkey see, monkey do. Over time, they forgot the initial reason why we did something,
right?
Because it's been lost over a generation. And so you've got to actually sit down and think, is like, why am I doing that? Is there a benefit? What's the cause? What's cause and effect either side? And understand the risk. You know, like if the car doesn't pull up exactly on the X, is that going to contribute, 1,000-fold to the risk profile turning up? Probably not. It's probably going to take an extra step. Now, it's not ideal, but I don't think it's, I'm going to have a Twitter war over that.
And the interesting thing about that, without even having the argument ourselves, the best part about that was like polarizing for me to see this split of like yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. And nobody was on the fence. Everyone was hard out for their whichever way they went, right?
Yeah.
And it was cool to see because I looked through that and just found 100 dudes I'll never hire no matter what. Just off that thread, either because of the ridiculous crap they came up with on their comments, in my opinion, ridiculous crap, or the way they spoke to people. Like you can have an argument or a debate and put a reasonable conversation up
and be respectful
pro or against. I'm pretty sure you and me, if we disagree on this, we can have a conversation about the pros and cons and come to a conclusion. But dudes were just slaying each other, like, absolutely destroying each other over this. And I thought, you are unemployable if based on a LinkedIn post that doesn't even impact you. You just blow
the second I see you in my
load.
DMs, I'm going back to that post and I'm just going to post it on you right now.
Yeah. And it's so easy to do these days.
Oh, it is, like, man. Stuff lives
it's like, hey, I'm just going to jump on and just check up on this guy.
What this guy's temperament is. No, I agree with you 100%. Personally, I'm on the side of private security, man. Seatbelt security. If my principal, client, customer asks me to do something simple that doesn't make us vulnerable at a time when we need to not be vulnerable, I am a service. This is a service related industry. I am here to keep them, to steal AS's tagline, safe, productive, and happy as I can. And it helps me gain equity. Now, obviously there's mission creep, like trying to get you to walk the dogs and stuff. You got to fight those wars. But, I'll help them with the bags 9 times out of 10. And if I don't, I have a really good reason. And I want that person to feel comfortable enough to have me close to them when and if something happens. And sometimes, sometimes I even got to put a car seat in before we leave the house. And you know what? My guys, we're happy to do it because we are here literally. And that's one of the courses I talk about is managing your expectations. You're here to serve these people. That's what we are here to do. Warriors have been servants since the beginning of time. Samurai means to serve. Like this is a respectable act of service that you honestly must train to be able to do well. But as a warrior in this mission set, we're here to serve. And so we do all those things as long as they don't get in the way of our primary objective, with a good attitude.
And I'll put this one there. If you're always saying no to your client, right? No, I can't do that. No, I can't do that. No, I can't do that.
Your survivability is going in the toilet, and the company's survivability is going in the toilet.
They're not going to listen to you when you need them to listen to you. So, I say a couple of things to my client before I start a job.
Yep. And manage expectations.
Yeah, and it's like if I physically put my hand on you in a certain way, or I call you by a certain name, which is different to normal, that means I mean business, right? Yeah. You were to listen to what I'm saying, but you can't do that every day. It's like, hey, I can't be like right on your left shoulder walking behind every day because that person, one, they're not going to hire you anymore. They're going to go away. You're annoying me. So you need to protect that person at all times. So doing stuff that helps that person out when there's no threat is okay. You know, because when you go, hey, no, you can't go to that nightclub for these reasons. Yeah. They go, okay, he's serious.
Okay. Yeah. And
there's also the difference between running an all-day detail for a client that's just got appointment after appointment, it's full limousines and it's full, 3-man team, whatever, all good, right?
Right.
But like we've got a client that's a 24/7 client that's very low likelihood of a problem, but extreme consequence if a problem occurs, right? So like super low profile, almost no likelihood of a risk eventuating. But if it did, like international problem, like an international problem, right?
And it'll probably be a sophisticated attack at that level as well. It wouldn't be like just a bomb turns around and,
Or it could just be that random mitigating, like, so we do everything with this client. We drive them, we PSO them, we do residential security, whatever. But it's like shifting between the gears in a 24-hour period.
100%.
Because you might go to like a restaurant in a bad neighborhood where there's just like junkies everywhere and like homeless people and mentally ill people everywhere. So there is that chance of just random attack or random occurrence, violence, whatever.
Embarrassment or something.
Like just that awkwardness of, there's a weird guy yelling at me in the street trying to throw cats at me. That's a problem. Like, so we're going to move on.
Right.
Or there's the targeted attack. But you go for a walk on the beach in the morning, then you're sitting around the house in the afternoon, then you're going to go to the gym in the evening. Like you've got to be able to transition through those roles. And sometimes it is taking the butler out to just get some food or whatever it is that they need. Like you've got to find a way. And when you're driving and shadowing, like you can't always park the car in a garage a kilometre away and then make them walk the whole way in the rain. You're going to have to do a drop, then go park the car, then catch up. Catching up might be difficult because you can't find them now. They're not communicating, they're not answering the phone, whatever. All these things are going to happen.
Yep.
And we have to be able to be dynamic and do the dynamic risk assessment and go, you know what, I'm not really supposed to leave them alone, but it's going to be 6 minutes. I've had a look around. I don't think there's any obvious threat. I'm going to have to take a chance, essentially. I'm going to have to weigh up.
I think especially if you're working solo and managing expectations with the client or the customer in the beginning so they understand the level of protection you can actually provide with one human is huge. But then also like when you are, working solo and you're weighing these things in private security, if you're not like in a state department or a government entity where you have this authority, in the private sector, you don't have that authority. So you not carrying that bag or getting that door or whatever it is they want you to do could literally be the thing that loses your company the account. And we want that authority, but that authority comes with rapport. That authority comes with trust and respect. And so, especially when I talk about molding the relationship with my customers and clients, it comes with me showing them that, you know, I'm the type of guy that you do want to have around. I bring the environment down to a comfortable level. I walk in with you, like my clients, you know, like sometimes when I make content, I think to myself, like, should I put a suit on just so that these guys, so I look more the part? No, because my client, the families that we take care of, they literally are like, if you wear a suit, we're going to fire you. We want you to look like a dude. Okay. Look like a dude. I don't want
like your environment you're in.
Yeah, exactly. You know? Like they're like, I don't want 100 people looking at me when you walk in. Like, you know, if they look at you because you're like a decent sized guy and you got a couple tattoos, cool. But like, I don't want them to see an earpiece and a suit and all this stuff. And like, everyone wants to know who I am now because you're all of a sudden walked in a room with me. And I'm like, thank you. Thank God, you know, because we've had the other types too. But, you know, that's the game in private security. You have to gain rapport with these people, fit into their life. That's why, you know, my company emblem is like a one integer on a periodic chart, because I am one component on the periodic chart of this person's life that has to work. I've got to work with the gardeners, the drivers, the house staff. We have to fit into that world. It's not about us. So I agree 100%, man, with everything you guys are doing. You're dropping some solid knowledge here. And I come into the game with ideas that don't serve.
I think understanding risk as well, like you said, if you're wearing a suit when everyone's in, you know, casual attire and you walk into a restaurant, maybe they didn't know who that person was. You've become above the detection threshold. Someone's gone, oh, wait, that's a bodyguard. Who's that person? Yep. You know what? I hate that person.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to do something because I've had a few wines at the restaurant. Yep. You know, and it's my chance to interact with that person because I'm drunk. That could be intentional risk.
100%.
So, like,
and then paparazzi's outside, and then you can't get back to the vehicle. And then people that don't even know who your client is want selfies because now we live in the selfie. And then once one person wants a selfie, now you got a line of people in Starbucks who want selfies, and it just gets horrible. Like
it snowballs. And you know, sometimes our industry causes those problems.
Yep.
You know, when I don't look like your typical bodyguard, and I can blend into any environment because I'm a chameleon. That's the way I want to be. Whether it's in the corporate space, I'm hanging at the park with the family and the kids, or, you know, I'm at a casual barbecue with friends. People don't go, oh, is that your bodyguard? It's like, oh, no, that's Ryan. He's just hanging out with us for the day. You know, he's just flown in. He's hanging with the family for a few days.
Exactly.
So, you know,
I think it all comes down to ego, man. Like, if we've got a saying for us, like, say you're getting a daily rate, right? Say you're not on by the hour, you're on a daily rate. And there's a 2-hour window where the client's gone to dinner. Okay, yeah, you're going to eat, you're going to hit the restrooms, you're going to freshen up, you're going to do what you need to do for your admin. All good. There's time there to do that. Once that's done and there's still time, like, we have the philosophy of, how can I be busy? What else can I do?
Find work.
That's what I tell. Like, so they clear everything. Like, we look for work and we go bang, bang, bang. I can clean this. I've got time to freshen the car up. I've got time to replenish the water and the mints in the back of the car, whatever it is. Then when that's all done, cool. Take some rest, chill out, recuperate for the next bit. All good. But get the work done first. Don't have such an ego that, well, you know, I need to break. I need to have a rest. That's not for me to do. I don't do that. If you just take ego out of, whether it's operating, whether it's client liaising, whether it's with your job interviews, if we just, it's a testosterone fueled, egotistical industry, all good. But the quicker we can shift that like, if the new generation coming in don't bring that, if they bring like the right attitude and aptitude to listen and learn and push us forward, like, I really hope in 20 years, that's what we're seeing. And, you know, people like you're a massive contributor to that.
Thank you.
That next generation, like, doing it properly. But one thing we can all control, we can't control our intelligence, we can't control our experience, like, immediately. You can do that over time, but you can control your ego. We can all check our ego like that. Some people pretend they can't, but absolutely you can just not be a dick.
Not be a dick. And honestly, man, that's what I tell guys. I'm like, you need to learn how to take pride in the right things. You know, learn how to take pride in the quality of service you're going to render. Take pride in being humble. take pride in having confidence which comes from experience with yourself. Are you training? Do you have hobbies that contribute to you being able to perform on duty? Like, do you read books? Do you listen to audiobooks? Are you doing anything for personal development? Are you learning art? Are you
a new skill,
MMA?
a new sporting skill?
Yeah.
Can you ski? Can you dive?
Yeah. You go to Toastmasters.
Can you free fall?
Yeah, man. You get nervous talking to the clients, go to Toastmasters, learn public speaking, take a sales class. It doesn't have to be physical, but are you contributing to yourself? Like, take pride in being a professional student. And those are the guys, man, and that's what I really want to see for our industry. No more of this once upon a time guy. Oh, I went to Iraq twice, so I know how to do this stuff. And it's like, no, man, and that, I was a victim of that right towards the beginning. Then my buddy took me to a shooting competition, and like a 17-year-old girl mopped the floor with me. And I was like, I've got to learn things. Yeah. My ego, boom. I took that hit. I took it well, and that's what I want to see, man. I want to see people who are legitimate protectors and that master and appreciate the art, man.
And think outside the box. Like, if you live in Texas, learn Spanish.
Yeah.
Just do it. Don't not do it. Just do it. It's pretty simple. Like, if you're going, what do I do that is going to benefit my career? Yep. That's just obvious to me. Like, if you live in an area where there's a predominant culture that speaks it, learn the language. And
you guys already said it, man. As employers, the individuals we see contributing and investing in themselves are the easy ones for us to invest in and for us to want to link and join forces with. The ones that are focused on contribution, that are contributing value online, and you see that they're trying to figure out how they can be valuable to the team and they're contributing in themselves. It makes it a lot easier for us to want to contribute to them as well. So I dig that, man. 2 more questions as we get. Where do you see the industry in your neck of the woods headed, man? If you were going to forecast some things, is it growing? Is it kind of? Do you see? Do they need training? What would you say as far as futurescaping in your part of the game?
I think for us, like we had a massive push into Asia Pacific more broadly.
Yeah.
Sort of that whole Southeast Asia piece, which is a very large area and very culturally diverse, from Malaysia on one side to Japan at the top, and Pacific Islands on Samoa, Tonga, whatever on the other side. I think COVID obviously kind of put a halt on some of that.
Okay.
So our big play for next year is to get back and really just assess where those places are at post-COVID, because obviously a lot of those places are developing nations. A lot of those places survive almost solely on tourism, which didn't happen for them for a while.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of those landscapes are going to look a lot different now to what they did. So rather than guessing, we want to go back and make sure we understand the lay of the land and the risk, threats, and vulnerabilities in those places.
Nice.
Sort of in our region more broadly. I think that's critical to just shortly answer your question. I think for all of us in the industry, whether it's here or there or the other side of the world, the interconnectivity of the world now, whether it's for us or for our clients, like, you have to be able to operate overseas in different parts of the world. You have to be able to have connections all over the place. You have to be able to, expand whether it's like, I just live in New York, so I operate or I live in Manhattan, so I operate in Manhattan, or is it New York, or is it the US, or is it, the continental America?
Because if you're serving a billionaire, they're going to move around. It's a matter of time.
100%, man. Yeah. So you have to be able to understand those different spaces at least enough. I'm not going to go learn 30 languages to be able to work right across Asia, but I am going to go to all those places that I haven't been for a while at least, and make sure I've got connections to the right people, make sure I understand the culture, make sure I understand the general sort of atmosphere in those places at the moment, and keep fresh, so it's not just the thing that I did 10 years ago that I'm relying on.
Yeah.
And the other thing is predicting the next move, right? So again, going back to the Ukraine conversation, I think most people in the world knew that was brewing for quite a few years, right? Like, it wasn't a shock when it kicked off.
Yeah.
But nobody thought about it prior. Everybody jumped on it 2, 3, 4 months later. So, like, for us, it's about looking at where's the next one? I don't want to just be the last guy in a chain of also rans. Like, where's the next move? Where's the next strategic, environment, and try to build capacity in those places. Because if you can be, and that's for individuals as well, like that's our company strategy. But even if I was a freelancer on the circuit, I would be saying, okay, it was Hong Kong, then it was Ukraine, then it was Taiwan. Like, I'd be heading to Taiwan and going, what can I get established over there so that if that,
when that
kicks off, like I'm ready to roll.
And understand your market. So if you are just in the celebrity market, who are the upcoming celebrities? You can do it at a macro level or a micro level. It's just like you need to understand where you work in that environment and how you can best add for the next wave of events for whatever that is. And I think more broadly, to answer your question, the security industry is growing. It's going to change. So there's not going to be as much technical security on residential alarms is going down on one thing, but the AI in cameras is going through the roof. So everyone's going to have cameras at their house, but it's not going to be your traditional, big camera companies, your Hike Visions and that. It's going to be smaller companies that have better analytics, sort of thing. And so the industry is going to shape and change. And it's like, you need to be on the forefront and go, hey, where's my segment of that industry going and how can I value add when it does change? Am I ready? So, are there more celebrities, more rich people coming from the South American region and coming up and moving to, or are my clients flying to South America more? You need to understand how people are interacting with the world and how the world interacts with people to predict the next wave and be positioned to get there.
Yeah, and chart your path and take advantage of what's coming. 100%. And the industry is definitely growing. It's a great time to be in this game. And then the final question is, how do you guys want to be remembered, man? What's it all for? What's at the heart of everything you're doing? Easy question,
Oh, it's easy, but it's deep, right? Like,
100%. I was being facetious.
Yeah, man. In a nutshell, reputationally for the company, you want to be known as the best. Obviously, that's what we're all chasing, right? No one wants to be mediocre or just there. I think for us, like we genuinely have an interest in, Ryan does a lot in the veteran community. I do a lot in the industry to provide pathways and elevate those people with the right attitude and aptitude who can't get a job because they weren't in special forces 25 years ago. So nobody's looking at their resume. Like, I think, we're both like nearly 40, so we've got plenty of time left, but I'd like to see that shift in the industry to being a more positive place, like to being an actual career path, to not just being a place that washed up old vets end up, let's try and get some more youth. Let's try and provide a pathway and a supportive environment for people to, because I think the industry as a whole can take a lot of stuff off government eventually. Like if we were better, if we were a more solid industry globally, like there's a lot more we could get into. Because we see now, like as you said, like an EP operator should be better than your local sheriff or your local PD guy, like way better, And
absolutely.
Because our LinkedIns would suggest we're better, right? We all talk a mad game on our LinkedIn profile.
It's true.
Like, can we actually do it or what do we end up? So, I think I just want to see like a more positive environment with more genuine pathways and innovation. Like, tech's improving, the security climate of the world is changing constantly. Like, you just got to roll with it and try and be at the forefront. The one thing we're saying, this is a plug, and it sounds a bit stupid, but we've genuinely never had negative feedback, like critically negative feedback from a client. We've never had it. Obviously, there's feedback that things you can improve on over time, but we've never lost a client. We've never had like a genuine, that was terrible, don't do that again, whatever. We've never had it. And I think from a personal point of pride, like obviously we want to maintain that because that's
that means a lot.
Cool to have been going as long as we have with clients with as bigger profiles as we've had
Yeah.
Really go wrong. But, that's a 24/7 process. Like, it's not natural. I'm not sitting here saying, look how good we are. We work all the time. Like,
yeah, man.
All the time on that.
No, I love it, man. No, that's good. I think it's good that people know that about you guys, that you take pride in that, because you absolutely should, especially in this industry. And I love that you guys are all about, helping guys be legitimate protectors and invest in themselves. And even the idea of wanting to see this industry, especially in your area, be able to provide a legitimate pipeline. That's a career path. That was one of the things I was really excited about, because even for me, when I started in EP, it was still like, you got to know a guy. Like, it was a little bit like the Wild West. Like, there's dudes making mad money going over to Iraq contracting, but back here it was still kind of like, you got lucky, a billionaire. They got a little bit of a security thing going. Now we've seen the industry develop exponentially here in the US, which has been beautiful, because now I have these guys I can plug into, a legit career path. And it means a whole lot, a whole lot. It's been beautiful. So yeah, man, I love
it to you, man, because you've taken this stuff to the people. Like, you've taken this back to grassroots and given it to the people. It's not that intimidating. Like, again, a dude with a guard card that wants to improve is not going to go stand and get yelled at by some drill sergeant on a range, because he's just going to be intimidated to shit and go, I've got all these ex-Green Berets standing there. They all know what they're doing. That guy's yelling. I'm not going to go. Whereas you've actually taken it back to the people and just given everybody the best chance, like the best information, the best capability to improve.
And you've balanced it out. So you've made it more economical for a broad range of people to get into the industry. So millions of dollars were spent on me through my military career. I'm only a product of that environment, or those lived experience. You've opened it up and you've passed on knowledge, cheaper than, your programs aren't cheap, but at a cheaper capacity for the broader people to lift their game. And as, a rising tide fucking raises all ships, the more better guards that are out there is just going to be, hey, the next step, I only have to teach you this much to get to that level. And then I need to teach you this much to get that level. It's a snowball effect along the way. So, technology and social media has allowed us to do that, but it takes the individual to take the ego out and, hey, they're not my secrets. I didn't invent them. So why wouldn't I pass them along? As a culture, that's how we progress.
100%, man.
Like, you pass on knowledge to the next generation. And, I want to be the guy that, my team should be better than me.
Yeah, man.
The next guy coming through should be better than me, because I should be able to compress my life experience into a portion that person can absorb, and then grab Josh's life experience and absorb that. So he's got lots of life experience. That's how a society grows and builds over time throughout history. So our protector society that you've established, that's what I want to see down the track. People passing on knowledge.
Thank you.
And when you do that, you actually get jobs, because I know people have called me up and like, hey, you've helped me out. Yeah. I've got this weird contract. They're your sales reps.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do this as well as you. Yeah. You come in and we'll slice the pie up. Yeah. It's profitable for everyone. Mm-hmm. Except for those one or two jerks in the industry that we all have that are all over the world that
won't carry bags.
Yeah, they won't carry bags.
God bless them. They're out there. No, thank you. It's good. It really means a lot to be seen accurately. Because when I first started in terms of making content, and even for the podcast, a lot of guys were like, dude, you're ruining the industry, and, no one's ever going to work with you. And then I was like, no, one, what we do is not that. We're not the CIA guys. Okay. So just chill out. 1, 2, I'm not going to talk about anything sensitive, but what I am going to do is I'm going to help all these guys that are out here, just like me, who had to figure it out by themselves, actually have some way to acquire confidence with what we're doing. And what's it going to do? Bring back honor and dignity to what we do, as we have more competent agents out here in the game. So we created the largest body of real world executive protection content with this podcast series. There's hundreds of videos, the largest body. in terms of not the tactical protection reviews, but the field notes. I have over 100 field notes on a playlist on YouTube. Just go and get it. And when I really got to see the fruit of that, man, it was humbling, because I went to that close protection conference and dudes were walking up to me and they were like, bro, thank you for the free content, because what you've done is you helped me get a job. You helped me be able to do the job. Like, thank you. And that's when I realized, and there were some cool kids that, didn't want to shake my hand or whatever. But what I did realize is I'm doing this for the guy out there with the earpiece right now on post at nighttime, watching us during this podcast and actually working. We want him to be able to perform. And that's what this information is for. That's who this information is for.
And you know what? It makes operations better if because clients will only pay what for clients want. They only have a limited budget. So you may go on a job which needs 2 people, but they only send 1.
Yep.
And if you look across the room, we go to events where there's multiple EP dudes and you're like, hey man, I know that dude. He's done training. He's done that stuff.
Yep.
And I've been on it, on a media thing in a riot. We're looking after camera crew. So we're looking after 3 people and there's only 1 EP dude. And I looked over at the other network. I knew that dude. And we're like, hey man, we're going to operate together now. We're not, 100%. We're being paid by different people, but let's
make
pull our resources and protect our clients the best way we can, because I know that dude has skills. So passing that knowledge on actually helps your operations.
And I think it's programs like yours that, hopefully we do it in a sort of smaller way with industry advocacy and stuff. You made it okay to be open about it. Like before that, it was like, no, I do my thing and I talk about my thing, and you just go over there and you do your thing. And like you kind of, in the biggest way of, there's obviously a lot of influencers out there and people in the space doing good things, but I think, like certainly from my experience, you're the one that made it okay to talk about the good, the bad, the gaps, like what do I need to work on? You made it okay to be honest about it.
Yeah.
I don't know everything.
And we're not perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
We're not perfect, and you only learn through your mistakes or someone else's. Yeah. They've told you their mistakes, so you're not going to do that.
Yes.
Or you make a mistake and go, hey man, it didn't go critical. Well, I'm not going to do that next time. And there's not a person out listening to this podcast that hasn't thought that. I'm 13 years Special Forces, and I've made plenty of fucking mistakes, but I've learned from them. And that's the key.
That's the key. And hopefully we can all learn from them. And that's really makes us all better.
Well, it produces good things, right? Because we looked at coming over to Vegas for one of the conferences about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And I sort of looked at it, like it came up on LinkedIn or whatever, and I didn't really know any of them. Like I knew some of the names, but I never really had any connection to anybody. And I thought, it's a pretty expensive venture to just turn up in Vegas and hope dudes will talk to me and hopefully I'll get something out of it. Like, do I want to spend 10 grand on that like that maybe, but then over the last couple of years, like, obviously more time in the industry, more exposure and whatever, but, through guys like yourself and the connections we've been able to make in a more open world, like we're coming over this year, but, not only are we coming, like it's valuable for us to come over, but I've got a list of like 30 guys that we're already teed up to have meetings with, that we're already like actively going to
relationships.
Yeah, and it's not just from like a, that wasn't just cold strategy based, hey, I need to get in with that guy. That's just like people have opened up to doing this stuff, because of the open content that's out there, and like the fact that it's okay now to kind of turn up and go, I don't know anyone in the room, can you help me out? Like
100%,
be a normal thing,
That's true. Hey, you're not going to know anyone in the room unless you come up and say hi. So, whether that's on LinkedIn or in person, introduce yourself, have an intelligent conversation about the right topics at the right time, and people will listen to you, because people aren't fucking jerks all the time.
Yeah. And there's actually so many cool people in the game. It's been an honor. My goal has been the same goal of most of the successful warriors that I like to study, which is uniting the tribes, man. I want to unite the tribes. I want to unite our industry. I want to create and we are going to create an international network together around this globe of resources that we can work together. We're going to get better together. We're going to make this industry better together. So Gentlemen, it's an honor. I can't wait to see you guys out there in Vegas at the EP Forum, the Close Protection.
That'd be fucking awesome.
Hanging. We're going to be networking, talking. I'm looking forward to all of it. You guys got anything else you want to leave us with before I wrap this thing up?
No, good, man. Appreciate your time.
100%. Yeah, well, thank you. Those who are listening got a lot from this, and if you guys made it all the way to the end, much love and respect. I hope I get to see most of you guys out there in the field, training at the events, all the stuff. And we'll see you on the next episode. This is my MCK. There are many like it, but this one is mine. If you've got a firearm sitting around, a pistol that you are not doing anything with, get an MCK. They make them for every single model. If you want a micro conversion kit that will turn your handgun into a force multiplier, get one, man. They are ultra affordable. CAA MCK micro conversion kits are changing the game, y'all. So if you don't have one, you need to get one. Get one. Your women, children, people that are less physically potent will be able to fire your firearm to farther distances with more accuracy. You will be able to fire your firearm to farther distances with more accuracy. I want to get one of these into the hands of 100,000 more protectors this year, because ultimately we are only as good as the nation is only as good as its protection. Your home is only as safe and as good as your ability to protect it. MCK, go get one. Drop your handgun in. Take it to the next level. Out. Boom. Yo, if you're a private security professional wanting to take your game to the next level, go to executiveprotectiontrainingday.com to check out my personal success package for private security professionals. Check it out, executiveprotectiontrainingday.com. And remember, y'all, hard skills do save lives, but soft skills get you paid. Boom. Boom. And to support this podcast, go to executiveprotectionlifestyle.com and contribute to our Patreon account. That Patreon account is what helps me make this podcast possible, contributing to this brand, what we're doing here, making it so that I can bring better guests on, making it so that we can plan more events and just expand the contribution to the private security industry, and also to making America a safer place. Do whatever you can, contribute whatever you can, because it makes all of these things possible. Thanks for those contributions. Yo, and before we go, I got a shout out to the sponsors, starting out with Primary Weapon Systems, PWS. They truly are the evolution of the rifle. Use Byron for 10% off. Grayman & Company, the most comfortable tactical suits in the game. Use Byron for 10% off with them. Until the next podcast, this is Byron Rodgers, protector by nature and by trade. Out.